And a pleasant, good Tuesday evening, WNBA and women's basketball fans, and we welcome you for the final time before hiatus kicks in to the WNBA 365 network, your 24/7 365 comprehensive home of all things WNBA and women's basketball related. Joining you folks tonight, again, as we mentioned, for the final time before we do in fact begin our hiatus period. This is WNBA 365 for the final time here for August 29th, 2017. Good evening, folks, and welcome into the Calamax Sports Studios here in San Diego. Cal Miller joining you folks here solo this evening for the time being, perhaps, and as usual, folks, we always have the door open for Crystal Thomas or for any of our other correspondents to come and join us here tonight in the Hangout. Of course, folks, again, want to first and foremost, again, give a major shout-out and thanks to our good buddy Ari Schwartz of WNBA Insider for joining the program last night. Yesterday evening, and of course grateful for that, and also already sharing the video on Twitter and also on the website today over on WNBAinsider.com. So again, thanks to Ari for again sharing the vid and going forward with the whole program from yesterday evening. Of course, folks, as usual, Facebook, Twitter, live chat box open for you folks over on Facebook.com/WNBA365 or find us over on Twitter at WNBA365 or at Calamac3 with the hashtag WNBA365, or, of course, write in your questions, comments, or concerns into the live chat box on the right part of your screen. And we'll get to those questions or comments when we have ourselves a break in the action. All right, folks, just one game tonight and some notes regarding the playoff scheduling and also the playoff picture and also more about what's coming up with the hiatus period kicking in. But, of course, folks, one game tonight on the schedule, the Sun and Mystics. Connecticut wins again, 86-76 over Washington, highlighted by two career nights for Sun players. First, it is Alyssa Thomas, a career-high 26 points. Jasmine Thomas had 20 for the Sun, and also Jonquel Jones with a 22-rebound game, her third 20 or more rebound game of the season. That ties Tina Charles for the team and franchise record for rebounding, or for games of that matter, and also recorded her 375th rebound on the season, which is now second most in league history for the Sun. Elena Deladon, 24 points in the loss, and Shatori Walker-Kimbrough with 14 points for the Mystics this evening. And starting with the Sun, folks, obviously a career day, or career night, I should say, for both Alyssa Thomas and Jonquel Jones, who have been, I think, two of the most fun, most exciting, and most intriguing players to watch on this very young and intriguing ball club, I think, as we talked about this last night and weeks beforehand about how so much fun it has been watching the Sun team. And as I said, I think a couple shows ago, I don't think, and I'm sure a lot of you folks out there have probably not seen a team that had, roughly 2-3 years maybe, or, 2-3 bad seasons, bottom part, last place of the conference. They go through this mini rebuild phase and they get through and through the draft, of course, with Jones and Thomas and all these other studs we've seen play, that in such a short window of time, or short amount of time, that we've seen a team go from bottom of the conference of the league to now being an upper tier, somewhat, mid-level, getting close to an elite team in such a very short amount of time. And I know in baseball it takes years. If you look at the Cubs recently, of course, they took 3, 4, maybe 5 years for their rebuild stage. Maybe other teams in basketball have done the same exact thing or are working to go that route. NHL hockey, same way. But I just don't know, though, if we have seen a team or a franchise, that has struggled for so long, or for a bit of time, and then, and as we mentioned, in a very short amount of time, get back on track. And I think it starts at the top with Amber Cox in the front office. It also goes to Kurt Miller and his coaching staff, and then as well, and how they have gotten these young kids to click. And again, this is also the second year that they do not have Shania Gumake playing after the injury that she's still getting over. But tonight, again, for the Sun, Alyssa Thomas, who I think is just maturing very well and is just playing now at a upper tier, elite status now for her. Jasmine Thomas as well, playing great tonight. And then, of course, Jonquel Jones, an absolute beast, a monster tonight in the paint, 22 rebounds. Again, that is a new career high for rebounds for Jonquel, and also her third game this year. She's had 20 or more, and again, notched her 375th rebound of the season as well for CT this evening. And now the Sun with the win are now 11 games or 10 games over 500, now 21-11. The Mystics are now 17-15. The Sun with that win, by the way, per Michelle Volpel of ESPNW, that clinched and did lock in their top 4 seed. And they, as of right now, according to Michelle, will host their single round elimination game at Mohegan Sun on September 10th at this point in time. All right, going to the chat box real quick from our outstanding correspondent and our main man, Todd Mintz. Todd says, first and foremost, after a couple of subpar games, this is about Jonquo Jones, JJ back in business with scoring and lot of boards, 14 and 22 respectfully. Jasmine hit a big basket with about a minute left to put the game away. About the Mystics, he says they have real problems. They have really faded. If anything, they are not playing better with Deladon than without her. Tolliver, another poor night. They miss Taylor Hill badly. You know, and Todd, obviously, for a team, obviously 2 teams that I think that were going through somewhat of a, obviously the Sun going through the rebuild stage, but the Mystics trying to see or find the right puzzle pieces. And again, I know that I think I said this weeks ago, I think, that when Deladon and Tolliver went to Washington, again, this was my thoughts, though, you know, in the offseason, then recently, or still has been, was that really, I think, gave the Mystics their first 2 true superstar franchise players. I mean, I know about Shamika Hoskla, love her to death, and maybe Elena Beard for a bit. But truly, though, for a team that obviously has lacked, someone has lacked that star power. I mean, I talked about this last season, 2015, 2014, about the Mystics not really having that poster child or that one player that you can put on a billboard somewhere in the DMV or around in front of Capital One Arena. And this year it was both Deladon and Tolliver. And Todd, I think even to go back to what I brought with Ari Shorts last night is I think we all still want to see EDD play a full 34-game schedule, not be bothered by Lyme disease or by a back problem or by a thumb. And I think that's what we have somewhat been deprived of or robbed of recently, has been that we have not been able to see her play a full 34-game schedule plus any playoff games that do, in fact, come to fruition. In regards for Tolliver, again, I said this 2 shows ago, I want to say, but really, though, I think by her standards and I think by every fan standards, definitely a year for her to forget so far. And going from and this, I think, is also something that does not quite get that does, I think, get lost in the shuffle, is playing certain systems under certain coaches. Obviously, for Tolliver's time in Los Angeles, I mean, you're going through Carol Ross for at least 2 seasons, or maybe 2.5, 3 maybe at tops. You're working through Penny Toller for 6 games, the last part of the regular season of the playoffs, and then Brian Agler's system for 2 years. Now you go and switch teams, switch coasts. Now you're going under Mike Tebow, well-known, well-respected, love the man to death, as well as the head coach, and learning another new system. So, I mean, you're looking at, you know, new offensive schemes, new defensive philosophies, all that in many, many different circumstances of either shuffling between coaches or between teams. And I think that this year has definitely been a year that is probably, like many athletes do go through, TM, is they go through that one bad season. You know, they have a year that is obviously one to forget. And, you know, obviously, who knows? Maybe next year, maybe, you know, a year after getting all the things down to pat, that Tolliver will be the same bad woman she's been, making those late threes to win games, all that next season probably. Back to the Sun, though, folks, real quick. Again, record night, historic night for 2 players again. Alyssa Thomas, career-high 26 points in the win. And then Jonquo Jones, 22 rebounds in this game in total, including her 375th rebound on the season, which I believe is now second, I want to say, in single-season rebounding for the league, and her 3rd game of 20 or more boards for JJ this evening. Again, the Sun win over the Mystics from Capital One Arena, 86-76. So with the victory, the Sun are now 10 games over 500. And again, as mentioned from Michelle Volpel of ESPNW, again, that victory, again, by the Sun does clinch and lock them in for a top 4 spot. And according to Michelle as well, again, they are scheduled to host their 1-round elimination playoff game on September 10th. For the Mystics, they are now 17-15 in 5th place still, and would still host the Storm in the single elimination game, play-in game from Capital One Arena in our nation's capital. If the, by the way, folks, also the WNBA did put out the dates for the playoffs as well. Opening round matchups begin on September 6th. The semifinals will begin on September 12th, and the WNBA finals will tip off on September 24th. Those, again, are the scheduled or tentative dates right now for the WNBA playoff picture. But, again, according to Michelle Vopel of ESPNW, again, Michelle is reporting that the Sun will, again, host their first-round playoff matchup with their unknown opponent right now, scheduled for September 10th. That, of course, is pending anything further going on with arena problems or what have you going forward. But, again, the lone game tonight, the Sun over the Mystics, 86-76. So I think as we go back now to the Mystics again, so this is a late season tailspin that, of course, teams don't want to have happen. And right now for Washington, you know, obviously, I think, though, Todd hit it right, though, that it seems like in certain situations, though, or in spurts, teams sometimes play better or worse, sometimes more so better, when a new coach comes in, or sometimes when they do miss that star player on their roster. And I think, though, as well, that Todd is right, though, that I believe though, that Washington does miss Taylor Hill and her energy, her enthusiasm, and also, more importantly, eating up those minutes, of course, to take some pressure off of Lada, off of Deladon, off of Miesemann. And her absence, of course, does not help matters for Washington, and also that the injury bug somewhat laying its head or sinking its teeth into the Mystics' flesh during the season. And does this spell disaster for Washington? I don't think it's a full-blown disaster, but as I brought up, though, during the All-Star break show was a matter, though, of can Washington pull off a victory or pull it off, though, in the playoffs. Now, again, right now they are in the single elimination round, slated as of right now to play Seattle in the number 8 spot, 8 versus 5. But as I brought up, as Todd brought up when we were in Anaheim back in August of 2015, again, is, you know, it's cool and all about the regular season, but are you able, though, to do it for me, though, when it counts the most in the postseason? And this has been on the Mystics track record. Again, they're the only team, defunct or still playing, that has not made it to the WNBA finals in their franchise history. And right now, this has been a rough go so far in these last 3 games at least. But as well, and I think, though, that it also can't be stated, too, that teams just can't turn it on like a light switch for the postseason mix. I mean, you can't just, you know, stumble your way to the finish line, get in, and then all of a sudden, oh, it's the playoffs. Now we can start playing again. It has to be done all the way through the season. That's why Minnesota has won 3 titles in the past 5 seasons or what have you. LA finally won 1 after a long hiatus break as well, and Phoenix winning as well. I mean, that's that. And as I said last night, that's what separates the elite teams, the Minnesotas, the LAs, and the Phoenixes of the world, from the middle tier teams right now, which would be possibly the Sun in New York and them, and then to the teams that, of course, have struggled either this year, Indiana, Chicago, or San Antonio this season. So for Washington's sake, I mean, it's not the end of the world right now, but they will definitely have to improve, though, in these last couple of games to get themselves back on track for their potential finish to the postseason. Again, as of right now, they are 5 and would face Seattle in the playoff party, if in fact that does happen, and if the results do in fact hold up. But again, folks, as a reminder, again, playoff matchup dates as of right now, according to the WNBA.com website. Again, opening round September 6th, semifinals September 12th, and the WNBA finals scheduled for September 24th for the playoff matchups for all of the teams. But again, the finals again, or one final again, the Sun over the Mystics tonight, 86-76 from Capital One Arena in Washington, D.C. Folks, with that, again, this, as mentioned, this is our final show for at least the next couple of weeks, in days and weeks for that matter. But starting probably on Monday of next week, we will begin more and more of our WNBA social streams. Again, so if you have not done so, again, please follow us on Twitter at WNBA365. And again, you'll be notified. I think I'm still not fully sure how this is going to work out, but again, we're going to be starting more of our Periscope / social streams, probably between Twitter and Facebook Live as well. So again, be sure you follow us across the platforms on Facebook and on Twitter. We'll of course alert you folks with what does happen. But again, folks, we are again closing up shop after tonight's program for YouTube programming for at least the next couple of days, or the next couple of weeks, I should say. So again, if you don't see us for a while on YouTube, again, Please note again that there are going to be sidebar shows being done on Facebook Live and on Twitter. Again, so please stay tuned to any press releases that do come out or what have you from the press wires about what is going to be transpiring with the network coming up very, very shortly. But again, that will be both on Facebook Live and also as well on our Twitter account. Folks, 2 games on the Wednesday schedule for the WNBA. 1 game on Twitter and 1 game that will be on League Pass tomorrow. The Lynx and Fever on Twitter at 4 o'clock Pacific time, and then the Wings and Sky will hook up at 5 o'clock from from the Allstate Arena in Rosemont. And again, that game can be seen in its entirety on WNBA League Pass on top of the Lynx and Fever game being shown live on Twitter tomorrow evening. Folks, I guess final takeaway from the game tonight. Again, the Sun went over the Mystics 86-76, a final score. Alyssa Thomas, 26 points to lead the way for the Sun. Jasmine Thomas, 20 points. And Jonquil Jones, a monster tonight in the paint, 22 rebounds. Elena Deladon, 24 points to lead the way for Washington. And Shatori Walker-Kimbrough with 14 points for Washington in the losing effort for the Sticks this evening from our nation's capital. Again, to reiterate once more, but Alyssa Thomas, career-high 26 points in the win. And Jonquil Jones, 22 rebounds, including her 375th rebound of the season, and her 3rd game this year of having 20 or more boards. And a game that ties Tina Charles for the club record for most 20 or more rebound games in franchise history. Going to the chat box, Todd Mintz writes in to say real quick, Minnesota was stunned by Indiana at Bankers Life last time. Can the Fever rise up one more time to play spoiler? LA will need at least 2 wins and 1 Lynx loss to win the #1 seed. You know, Todd, that's an interesting point. And for a season, though, sadly for Indiana, that, of course, has gone by the wayside a year. Obviously, that snaps their very amazing playoff appearance streak again. As I mentioned, again, the Atlanta Braves of the WNBA, so many years in the playoffs and coming away with 1 title. Can this team rise up for one more to play spoiler over Minnesota? Obviously, Minnesota's had problems playing in Bankers Life. But I think that even in a way, though, that even with how the Fever played, though, that I think though as well that shellacking that they suffered against Minnesota earlier this season, again, where they were just basically, thrown to the curb, after 2 quarters of play. I mean, 68 points or 60-plus points in 2 quarters. And knowing that they have played well at home against Minnesota in recent memory and years, including if you look back at the 2012 WNBA Finals, that I think that this team, with it being that they now can just play that they're playing for pride more than they are playing for anything else, with knowing about how Minnesota has been reeling as of late, and again, obviously that Minnesota is probably the lone exception to the rule I said about turning it on for the postseason. That team turns it on for the playoffs every year, regardless. But the Fever, I think, could probably pull off an upset, perhaps. But if it's anything like what we saw when the Lynx absolutely tore the Fever to shreds a few weeks ago, definitely not going to happen. It could be a lot worse, maybe. But knowing that there's so much riding, though, for both Minnesota and both for LA, Todd, I don't expect any players to take any time off. For the Lynx and for the Sparks, obviously the Sparks don't play again until Friday against Atlanta at home and then wrap up their season on Sunday against Connecticut, which really I think more so for Minnesota's case, this is, I think, a trap game, I think, for Minnesota. I think as crazy as that may sound, folks, that the Lynx probably have pressure on them. I think more than LA does have pressure on them. And obviously, with this race is down to literally just a half game is all that's left. But 1 hiccup by somebody, and the balances will flip the other way and go towards that other team. However, though, I just don't see Minnesota losing, though, on the road. And obviously, so they have somewhat sputtered and skittered out of control lately with that 4 losses in 5 games, or that little stretch there. But LA needs to win their last 2 games flat out. So really, so in LA's case, take care of your business and really don't give a you-know-what, or don't worry about what's going on with Minnesota. Take care of your business and you put yourself in the best possible position so you get #1 and vice versa. But in regards to the question, though, I mean, as much as Indiana would be primed for an upset, I really don't see it happening because, of course, the Fever trying their best to somewhat right the ship and just play for pride and what have you. But obviously, good question, though. But again, at least judging by scenarios, LA would need at least LA will need to win their last 2 games and hope Minnesota loses at least one of their last 3 games remaining, because Minnesota does play, I believe, 2 more games in Los Angeles, I think, after the year, or after LA does, in fact, conclude their season. So a couple of things still left to be done. But, folks, I think, though, maybe judging off last season, and obviously people pointing or making excuses for the format change for the postseason as to why LA had won the title last season. But I think, though, folks, in the 2 years that we've had the new format, now, at least last year, seeing it firsthand. But I think, though, and I think we'll give your take here, folks, and we'll get your take here. Is call me crazy, call me stupid, maybe, if you want. But I think, though, that with the new format in place, the new format as opposed to the original format of the top 4 teams of each conference. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, throw me under the bus if you want to, but I don't think, though, that that there's been this much tension or this much drama or late season drama in a WNBA season probably in a long time, I think, with how we've seen, and now really of how we're seeing that every single game you play on the schedule has big implications. I mean, obviously right now between the Sparks and Lynx jockeying for by the 1 seed by a half game right now, and seeing how close it is for 7 and 8. I mean, I don't know if we've seen this much drama, this much good drama, I guess, in regards to seeing playoff races come down to the final game of the season. You know, much like, kind of much like the wild card system in baseball, of how you, or even in hockey for that matter too, with the NHL, that you're seeing more and more playoff atmospheric games, whether it was the LA and Minnesota game on Sunday that had the 19,000 people there, or even just sitting at home or watching the games from home or what have you, or reading it on the web. Is like, you may not, as that your team may not be in the fight, but you're feeling the drama and you're feeling the tension. You're hanging on with every single possession of every game played. That I think that the new format has brought to us after 1 year last year. I mean, obviously we saw the Mercury get hot last year, get on the final day of the season and then upset New York and, take down New York and Indiana in their elimination games, of course, losing to Minnesota. And then, and seeing LA win the championship again, and probably one of the greatest, if not the greatest, finals in WNBA history. But, I mean, thoughts, folks, I would appreciate those thoughts. But, I mean, I really just don't think I've recalled, either from 2004 to now, that we've seen this much drama, this much action-packed drama, where you're literally on the edge of your seat in the waning seconds of a ball game, whether your team's in the fight or whether your team is in the playoff mix or you're hoping for next year. But that the new format has really done wonders, I think, set a good, probably a good showing, I think. So if, in fact, if the NBA in a few years goes to the new format like the WNBA does, that this has been a very amazing joyride to be on so far. So greatly, very good so far. Todd says, Callan, great point. Under the old format, Chicago would be a lock for the playoffs. Now they need 2 wins in the last 3 games to have a chance, and the wings have to be at home versus Dallas tomorrow and Seattle on Sunday. And honestly, I mean, I think that also that when the NBA eliminated the division champions from getting automatic berths to the playoffs, that I think that also, in a very small way, I think added more drama for the NBA playoffs last year. But with this system in place, though, that it's top 8 regardless of conference. I mean, so it could be, 6 teams from the East in this and only 2 teams from the West in it, or what have you, or it is somewhat even 4-4. But that it adds a whole nother dimension, it's in a way, it's kind of like playing a sidebar game in golf. You have best ball or you have stroke play, but then you're also playing for, or you have another a secondary game you're playing too while you're on the golf course. But that, as I mentioned again, that it packs in more drama to each game. I mean, whether the games are won by 1 point at the final buzzer or won at halftime with 60 points in the second, through 2 quarters of play, it just adds more and more entertainment, more epicness, and above all, too, I mean, more drama for the fans out there. And that this year, I think, this year at least so far, there's been a bit more drama. I mean, last year you could talk about the Mercury getting in the back door after the Mystics laid an egg in their last game of the season last year. So far this year, I think that's been a very good talking point so far, has been that the new format change has really done wonders for the postseason party and postseason mix recently. Again, folks, reiterating final score from the night. Again, Sun 86, Mystics 76. Sun now 21-11, a lock now for a top 4 spot. And according to Michelle Vopel of ESPNW, they will host their first round or their single elimination round playoff game on September 10th at Mohegan Sun. The Mystics remain in 5th place at 17-15, 3 straight losses, and now we're still would face Seattle in their opening round matchup starting on September 6th or 7th from our nation's capital. And again, folks, the dates right now, again, once more mentioning, opening round matchups begin on September 6th, so next Tuesday or 2 weeks from Tuesday, from the night, the playoff party will begin. League semifinals the following week after on the 12th of September, and the WNBA finals 2 weeks later, starting on September 24th at the from the highest remaining seeds team home venue. But again, September 6th, opening round matchups. September 12th, semifinals 3 out of 5. And, of course, the WNBA finals September 24th, also 3 out of 5. With that, folks, reiterating again the 2-game schedule again for tomorrow. The Lynx and Fever, 4 o'clock, live and in full on Twitter. And the Wings and Sky, 5 o'clock from Rosemont, Illinois. Tip-off of that ball game will be at 5 o'clock PDT over on WNBA League Pass, or for our friends in the Chicago area, live and in full on the U2 tomorrow at 7 Central Time and 5 o'clock Pacific Time and 8 o'clock Eastern. But, folks, again, one final time. Final score and numbers from the night's game. Sun 86, Mystics 76. Alyssa Thomas, a career-high 26 points. Jasmine Thomas, 20 points. Jonquil Jones, 22 rebounds from the Sun of the victory, but 21st of the season. And for the Washington Mystics, Elena Deladon, 24 points, and Shatori Walker-Kimbrough, 14 points in the loss for Washington this evening. So with that, folks, on show number 363, we are going to sign off here tonight, folks. Again, as a reminder, again, this is our final show for the next few weeks. But again, starting on Labor Day Monday, again, either on Twitter or on Facebook Live, again, we will again be starting or having more of our social stream shows. So again, we'll be here live streaming from the Calamax Sports Studios, probably on my phone or on my iPad, whichever one I choose probably, or probably on my computer here. Again, we'll work on those, and again, and also a formal press release about everything coming up, including when our next possible YouTube show will be coming up very shortly after the program does go off air here. But again, folks, again, taking a breather again to fulfill obligations with other announcing gigs with college hockey and indoor soccer starting this Friday, and also possibly more avenues to travel down next year as professional lacrosse comes to my hometown next season, and hopefully we'll find a way to get in there and get involved with them as well next season from Valley View Casino Center. But again, folks, again, very fun. And again, thank you, folks, very much for joining us here. I know that we had one hiatus earlier, but again, this is needed again once more so I can, of course, take care of things that need to be taken care of course. And that begins with 14 games in 2 days, starting on Friday and on Saturday down here in San Diego. And again, folks, thank you very much for helping out and, of course, for joining us here on the program for the past few months. But again, folks, hiatus period begins effective tomorrow, but, of course, actually takes place and begins on Friday when college athletics do, in fact, start here in San Diego. But again, folks, for the entire network panel, for all of our correspondents, for Todd Mintz and for Crystal Thomas and Marquez Henderson and Tanisha Stewart, and for our good friend from last night, from Ari Shorts, and for the rest of us here, this is Cal McClurg from the Calamax Sports Studios in San Diego, folks, saying good night. And again, hiatus period beginning, and we will see folks back here hopefully sooner than later. But of course, folks, please stay tuned for our network social streams beginning effectively starting on Labor Day Monday next week. And of course, we will, of course, keep you folks in the loop on Facebook and Twitter when we will be back here for our network programming. But again, folks, hiatus period effectively starts really after the show ends, but does effectively start on Friday. But again, folks, for the entire network crew, again, thanks for being here with us. And again, we'll see you folks, hopefully, as mentioned, sooner than later. With that, folks, from the Calumet Sports Studios here in San Diego, this is Calumet saying good night. And we'll see. And again, we'll see you folks, hopefully, as mentioned, sooner rather than later when we do, in fact, get back to work here on the network. We'll see you folks again soon. Take care and good night, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.